A lonely housewife trapped in an unfulfilling marriage encounters a free-spirited man who awakens her deepest desires and offers a glimpse of the life she's been longing for. Moments before her bridal walk, Angelika retreats to a nearby room, gripped with anxiety. With her is her best friend Norma, who offers comforting words, reminding her that nerves are normal and that her love for Darius is all that truly matters. Reassured, Angelika regains her composure, and they head to the chapel. Just as she's about to walk down the aisle, Norma playfully offers a shot of alcohol to further calm her nerves. However, the teetotaler Angelika gently declines, determined to stick to her principles even on a special day like that. Sometime later, Angelika helps Norma plan her wedding. While Angelika's was intimate out of practicality, Norma dreams of a grand, unforgettable celebration. Pragmatic as ever, Angelika suggests saving her money instead for her post-wedding life. But Norma insists the splurge is worth it. Ultimately, Angelika sets aside her reservations to support her best friend's vision. When Angelika returns home, Darius eagerly greets her, ready for her to model for him. She suggests freshening up first, but he insists it's unnecessary and convinces her to start right away. As she strikes pose after pose, her husband showers her with compliments, clearly captivated by her beauty. Emboldened, she playfully suggests they take their passion further right then and there. To her disappointment, though, he brushes off the suggestion, staying focused on his photography and leaving as soon as he's satisfied with his shots. That night, Angelika laments that they've gone 2 months without intimacy, with Darius so consumed by work. While he eventually gives in to her wish, his lack of effort leaves her feeling unfulfilled. The next morning, following their usual routine, Angelika prepares food for Darius while he works from his home studio. Once finished, she heads to Norma's house to continue planning for her wedding. As the two friends browse pictures for inspiration, Norma's brother Simon makes an unexpected arrival. Norma is thrilled to see him, but quickly apologizes to Angelika, explaining she thought he wouldn't arrive until the next day. True to his laid-back nature, Simon nonchalantly removes his tank top as he strolls into the kitchen. Noticing Angelika's discomfort, he warmly introduces himself, adding that he recognizes her from one of his sister's old photos. He cheekily points out that her unicorn print undergarment was visible in the picture, inspiring him and his sister to nickname her Angelika the Unicorn in their conversations. Annoyed but unwilling to engage, Angelika opts to stay silent. As the women prepare to leave, Norma explains that Angelika doesn't hang out with single men, prompting Angelika to clarify that she simply finds it inappropriate. Simon then quips that he'd never want to hang out with someone like her anyway, adding he only wants to spend time with his sister. Offended, Angelika snaps back, agreeing that it's probably best for them to spend time together, and storms out. Worried, Norma quickly follows, urging her to return. However, Angelika reiterates her desire to keep her own rule about not hanging out with single men out of respect for her husband. When Norma calls her mindset old-fashioned, Angelika coolly replies that it's never outdated to be loyal before turning to leave. Later that day, while Norma and her brother are taste-testing wedding food, she calls Angelika for some questions. As Angelika starts to share her thoughts, Simon suddenly grabs the phone. He jokes that she doesn't get a say since she refuses to spend time with them, and abruptly ends the call. Angelika later confides in Darius about her frustrations with how Norma's wedding preparation is going. Understanding how important Norma's wedding is to his wife, Darius offers reassurance. He encourages her not to give up on her friend and suggests she return to Norma's place to continue helping her. Back at Norma's apartment, Simon greets Angelika over the intercom, playfully asking who she is. Angelika then responds by referencing the nickname he gave her, breaking the tension between them. Norma is overjoyed to see Angelika return, while Simon teases her about her no hanging out with single men rule. Now at ease with him, Angelika fires back by echoing his own words, saying she'd never want to hang out with someone like him anyway, and is only there for her best friend. The trio then moves on to taste testing, where Angelika casually mentions she doesn't drink and is vegan, much to Simon's amusement. When the siblings urge her to loosen up and break her rules for once, Angelika firmly stands by her beliefs. At one point, Simon begins recording the session, prompting Angelika to beg him to stop as it could cause problems with her husband. He agrees, but challenges her to take a bite of a cream-filled dessert as compensation. Annoyed but unwilling to prolong the banter, she reluctantly takes a bite. When Simon notices Angelika enjoying the treat, he dares her to have another. Though initially resistant, she eventually gives in, much to the siblings' delight. While having dinner, Darius notices the snacks Angelika bought and gently reminds her how unhealthy they are. Later, he asks about the man at the taste testing, making Angelika momentarily tense, thinking he's referring to Simon. When it turns out he's asking about the chef instead, Angelika feels a wave of relief. She then praises the chef and thanks Darius for motivating her to return to Norma's. The next day, Angelika works hard at preparing for her best friend's bridal shower. To her dismay, her husband barely acknowledges her efforts and offers minimal assistance. At Norma's bridal shower, Angelika does her best to create a lively atmosphere, but she couldn't quite energize the party. Just then, Simon arrives with a bag of alcohol. Taking one look at the subdued setting, he points out the lack of excitement and begins handing out drinks, quickly lifting everyone's spirits. Much as Angelika tries to play along, she's clearly hurt to see her efforts go to waste. Later that night, Simon approaches Angelika for a heartfelt conversation. With a touch of sincerity, he gently advises her to focus less on rigidly doing what she believes is right, and instead strive to connect more deeply with her own emotions and the feelings of those around her. He then asks her what she's truly feeling at that moment. Angelika admits that, deep down, she just wants to let loose, get drunk, and have fun, but quickly adds that it's not really how she wants to behave. Smirking, Simon offers her a choice. She can either join the party and enjoy herself, or sit in the corner silently judging everyone else. After a moment of reflection, Angelika agrees to join in, on the condition that it's just for that one night. Pleased with her decision, Simon hands her a shot of vodka that she downs and officially welcomes her to the party. For the rest of the night, Norma and their friends revel in the fun, while Simon captures the lively moments on video. Though still not entirely at ease, Angelika makes an effort to participate. Later, a friend gifts Angelika a belly chain. She admits she's always wanted one, but recalls her father telling her that only indecent women wear them. In response, her friend notes that those types of women tend to have the most fun. Hours after the party, Angelika wakes up and notices the same friend slipping away toward the back area, where she begins an intimate encounter with Simon. Feeling awkward, Angelika initially tries to ignore what's happening, but a part of her is unexpectedly drawn in. Unable to resist, she finds herself giving in to the moment. To her shock, though, the two suddenly walk in for some drinks, prompting her to pretend to be asleep. Angelika eventually dozes off and wakes hours later to find Simon sitting across from her. He explains that everyone else has already left while casually pointing out how drab her underclothing looks. Still groggy, she asks why no one woke her, to which he replies that they tried, but she was too deeply asleep. Panicking, she begins searching for her bag to leave, but Simon calmly points out that he already has it and offers to take her home. When she firmly refuses, he retorts that, given her condition, she doesn't have much choice. Once home, Angelika puts on the belly chain along with her most intimate undergarment, eager to see how it looks. Filled with excitement, she calls out to Darius to admire her outfit. However, he could only offer a half-hearted acknowledgement before walking away, leaving her deflated. Feeling increasingly unfulfilled in her marriage, Angelika shifts her focus to ensuring Norma's wedding is perfect. With Simon accompanying her, she visits the wedding venue the day before the event to oversee the workers and help prepare the space. Later that day, Angelika joins the crew for a practice run, filling in as the bride. As she walks down the aisle, memories of her own wedding flood her mind. When she reaches the altar, Simon joins her, pretending to be the groom. Annoyed by his antics, Angelika starts to protest, but Simon urges her to relax and play along, joking that this might be the closest he'll ever get to a wedding. Simon then invites Angelika to dance, mimicking the bride and groom's first dance after exchanging vows. Initially hesitant, she eventually agrees. As they sway together, Angelika finds herself unexpectedly caught in the moment as she rests her head against his chest. For a fleeting second, it feels as though she's found something in Simon that's been missing in her life. However, reality quickly sets in, and she withdraws, regaining her composure. With the rehearsal complete, she gathers the crew and heads to a nearby lake with Simon to unwind with a swim. While they enjoy the water, Simon compliments Angelika on her hard work and creativity, suggesting she should consider becoming a full-time wedding planner. Curious, he later asks what she does for a living, and Angelika responds proudly that she's a housewife. When Simon remarks that it isn't really a job in the 21st century, Angelika counters that she doesn't care what others think, standing confidently by her choice. In response, he shares his fondness for household tasks, while insisting he doesn't view them as a job. Though amused by his take, she continues to defend her role as a housewife, even as she admits to not really getting anything in return. That evening, Angelika busies herself decorating the villa at the wedding venue for Norma and her partner's honeymoon. When Simon notices her struggling with the string lights, he offers to help, but she stubbornly declines. However, after watching her efforts falter, he steps in anyway and takes over. Once he's done with the lights, an awkward silence fills the space. Then, recalling Simon's earlier advice about following her feelings, Angelika finally admits that she desires to be intimate with him. Simon initially resists, firmly stating that it's a bad idea since she's already married and might get into trouble. However, she counters by saying she doesn't care. With the tension between them proving too strong, he eventually gives in and they share a passionate evening. The next morning, Simon and Angelika share a quiet moment by the lake, exchanging a soft kiss that seals their growing connection. Later, Darius arrives at the wedding venue, capturing photos of the setup and admiring the remarkable work his wife has done. While speaking with Norma's relative, he laments how Angelika never had the chance to experience something so elaborate herself, given how meager his resources were when they got married. Moments later, Angelika approaches and gives her husband a warm hug, despite her conflicted feelings. Growing emotional, Darius suggests they have a second wedding. This time, a grand celebration unlike their modest first one. To his surprise, his ever-practical wife agrees without hesitation. Filled with excitement, Darius slips off his wedding ring and drops to one knee, proposing to his wife once more. Overcome with emotion, Angelika says yes, and they embrace tightly. However, their tender moment is abruptly interrupted as Norma angrily approaches Angelika, with Simon following close behind. Furious, the bride reveals that she just found out about what Angelika and Simon did the previous night. She then tells her best friend to leave, accusing her of ruining what's supposed to be a special day. Darius is stunned upon hearing this revelation. Enraged, he lunges at Simon, but the latter is able to strike first. As Angelika frantically tries to explain her side, her husband storms off, overcome with anger from her betrayal. That afternoon, Angelika returns home to find that her husband has already packed his belongings and left. Overwhelmed with grief and regret, she collapses into tears. The next day, Angelika wakes to yet another phone call from Simon, who has been persistently trying to reach her. Still reeling from the repercussions of what they did, she curtly tells him to stop calling and cuts the conversation short. Desperate to make amends, Angelika spends the entire day trying to call Darius, but each attempt goes unanswered. As the weight of her failing marriage sets in, she turns to substances she once vowed to avoid, seeking a fleeting escape from the pain. Determined to move forward, Angelika later transforms her appearance, restyling her hair, experimenting with bolder makeup, and stepping into outfits far removed from her usual style. She then goes to Norma's house, hoping to mend their strained relationship. Speaking through the intercom, Angelika apologizes profusely for ruining her wedding day. She also admits her regret for all the times she dismissed Norma's advice and declined her invitations to have fun as she clung too tightly to her principles. Angelika then reflects on the unusual hold Simon seems to have over her that led her to act in ways completely out of character. Before she can dwell further, Norma opens the door, remarking how beautiful her wedding turned out despite everything that happened. Overjoyed to have her best friend back, Norma pulls Angelika into a warm embrace and invites her in. Inside the apartment, Norma excitedly shows Angelika photos of her wedding. She expresses heartfelt gratitude for her best friend's dedication in making it all possible, and apologizes for throwing her out of the event she worked so hard on. As they reminisce about the wedding, Angelika turns the conversation to her own marriage, admitting that she doesn't want to give up on it. Understanding her pain, Norma promises to help her try to reconnect with Darius. In return, Norma asks Angelika to apologize to Simon for what happened. Though hesitant, Angelika ultimately agrees, taking a sip of wine to ease her nerves before making her way to Simon's room. When Angelika admits she's not even sure why she's there, Simon playfully responds that she's there to join him on an adventure. Curious, she asks what he does, and he lists his usual passions: painting, music, running, and traveling. When she clarifies that she's referring to his profession, he casually reveals that he's an adult entertainer. Though amused, Angelika dismisses Simon's claim, insisting he must be joking. In response, Simon tells her it doesn't matter what he does for a living, instead reiterating his invitation for her to join him on an adventure. Angelika then confides her dreams of settling down, starting a family, and building a life filled with stability, goals, and ambition. Simon, however, waves off her vision and enthusiastically outlines his own plans for them: traveling the world, staying with friends along the way, and taking part-time jobs to fund their carefree journey. As she mulls it over, he moves closer, and they end up making love. The next morning, Angelika reflects on her sheltered upbringing and her journey to finally breaking free and embracing the life she's always desired. Turning to Simon, she thanks him for being the catalyst that set her transformation in motion. True to her word, Norma later devises a plan to bring Darius to her home. under the pretense of needing his photography services for a children's party. After leading him into the living room, she discreetly knocks on a nearby door, signaling Angelika to come out. When Angelika steps into view, Darius instantly realizes it's a setup. As he starts to react, Angelika pleads with him to stay and hear her out. Speaking earnestly, she opens up about the realizations she's had over the past few days, about the importance of living in the moment, appreciating the little joys in life, letting go of rigid rules and perfection, and being more in tune with her emotions. Angelika apologizes sincerely for her betrayal and professes her deep desire to stay with him, insisting they are made for each other. She then gently invites him to make love, hoping to rekindle their bond. However, Darius refuses, admitting that it's no longer just about her betrayal. Everything she's just said has left him questioning if he even knows who she is anymore. He reminds her that it was her and her family who instilled those rigid principles in the first place. While he initially struggled with them, he acknowledges that her values ultimately made him a better person. For her to now abandon those ideals is something he struggles to understand. As Darius criticizes her newfound perspective, Angelika experiences a sudden epiphany. She realizes they're no longer truly compatible, and that the version of herself he once loved no longer exists. With clarity and determination, she turns and walks away, choosing to be with the man who has inspired her to embrace her true self. Spotting Simon on the street, Angelika playfully echoes his earlier words, asking if he's ready for an adventure. Surprised but thrilled by her choice, Simon flashes a grin and joins her. Side by side, they walk down the street, brimming with excitement for the journey ahead.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.